Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 460, Deep Conversation with Sid Garza-Hillman and Dr. Garth Davis.
In today's episodes of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we're going way back to years ago, episode number 201, when we sat down with Sid Garza-Hillman and Dr. Garth Davis for an unscripted, unplanned, and unbelievable conversation. And we discussed certain things like the paleo lifestyle, protein, and really having purpose. We recorded this one evening when we were speaking with them at an event in the hotel breakfast room. I think they weren't thrilled with us being there so late at night. But the best part is just that we were laid back and we were actually just talking about whatever we would have talked about anyway, but we had the microphone running and we were able to use it as a podcast.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, a lot of fun, and it was a pretty funny show.
Well, if you ask me, it is.
It was a pretty funny show, and we all brought different angles to the conversation. There were great learning opportunities and takeaways. No matter where you are in your health journey, I think you're going to find something that you could take from this episode if you haven't heard it before. And even if you have, because it was such a long time ago, it's always nice to revisit, and I think you're going to love it. For those of you who don't remember who Dr. Garth Davis is, he's the author of Proteinaholic, which was a fantastic book that he wrote, and we talked to him on episode 42 and other episodes as well. He's also a bariatric surgeon, and he does a lot of great work helping people get healthier. And Sid Garza-Hillman is also a nutritionist and a program director at the Stanford Wellness Center, an author, a speaker, a podcaster, and a good friend of ours who's been on our show before. You're going to love these conversations. It's a lot of fun. And by the way, Happy New Year, and happy you're back listening to us in 2023, episode 460. You can check out the show notes at planttrainers.com/460. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, now it's more important than ever to stay close and connected to us as we're going to be making some changes here at Plant Trainers. So please head over to planttrainers.com and get our plant-based comfort foods recipe book for free. That's a $14.99 value just by signing up for our newsletter so that you can know what changes are, because we want to make sure that we stay in touch.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm just grateful to be enjoying another year. Every year is a blessing. Every month is a blessing. Every day is a blessing. I'm grateful for just being here, present in this moment.
I'm grateful for you listeners being back here, listening to the Plant Trainers Podcast. Here we go again. It's another year. Hope you enjoy the show, and just happy and grateful to have you here with us.
You're not recording it?
Yeah, he's recording.
They do a great job. This is not a diss of the Health Fest, but this is a question I had on the way home that I didn't record. When you guys do these things, do you feel hopeful or not hopeful, or a mix of both? We've done.
Hopeful in what way? That we're making a difference?
Yes, or that more people are going to acquire a little bit, or that people are getting enough to inspire them to. Are people going to change? Or I mean, is it going to spread? Or are we coming to this very focused little group that is kind of coming back to the same thing, and they know enough already, but they're kind of coming back to the same thing?
Yeah, my worry is that we're just all patting ourselves on the back. It's this one big community that just listens to what it wants to listen to reinforce it's already.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
But we came to it. You came to it. You came to it. You came to it.
And it was because there were people doing.
But I came to it because you're here and you're here. And she wanted to come.
But
other great people here.
Right. No. So on that argument, in theory, it will grow.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just come to these things and I'm like, I see the notepads.
But at the same time, there's people here that have no experience in this, or very limited. Foray. It's their first thing, and they're getting a whack of information from different people that somewhat contradicts certain aspects of the vegan lifestyle or the plant-based diet. And they're just coming in and getting...
But were you at my talk when I asked how many people are vegan?
Yeah, a lot of them.
The entire audience.
Right, but that doesn't mean they're healthy.
But then you have people who aren't healthy. They're hearing about raw, they're hearing about cooked, they're hearing about starches, they're hearing about...
I listened to some lectures and I'm confused.
Right.
So and I'm like literally at the stage where we did Friday night. Mm-hmm. It was like AJ, and then there was the raw woman.
Yeah. Natalie.
And then McDougal. I mean, there was 3 Did AJ do a talk that night, or she just emceed?
AJ didn't.
Okay, so it was
Yeah.
Natalie?
But Natalie and AJ are pretty much on the same.
No,
But AJ's not
Natalie's
raw.
Natalie's raw.
I thought AJ
and Natalie
was
talks
someone-
about
no.
how
She
much
cooks
she
in
weighed
her-
while she
AJ's
was on cooked
Instapot.
food.
Yeah, and it's like levels 1, 2, 6, and I can see people going in there. And
And
then
then
McDougal talks about
McDougal.
starch, which is her level 3, but her level 6 is ROM, and her level, and it's like already first
So
night, boom,
we can
15
see
minutes
automatically that there's people coming back each year after year, which means that they're gaining something each year to make them want to actually pay the money to come
Which is
back year
social,
after year, and they're
fun.
often
Yes.
coming
I
with
don't know.
A
other
lot of
people.
it's social. I mean, I was just talking to Jason.
A
Like,
lot
why
of
do you
it.
keep coming back? He's like, oh,
Who's
it's social.
Jason?
Regan.
Yeah, so
Sitting with us at dinner.
I just
So I
want to
think-
see my friends that I don't
Which-
get
which-
to see
which I
all
totally
year.
get, which
So
I
think
totally
some
get,
of the
and there's
30,
good food and
40-year-olds who are already living a healthy lifestyle are coming back because this is social, this is community. It's something that a lot of us don't have at home. But when you have more of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're coming back and they're bringing sisters, they're bringing cousins, or you have like the brand new 30, 40-year-olds who aren't in this lifestyle yet, they're coming back with other people.
Yeah. I
So-
definitely had a few people coming to me today saying, you know, I just started this. And, so we should be more optimistic, I get. My wife's big problem with me going and giving talks has been she thinks I'm preaching to the choir and making no difference. She's like, you're just going around talking to people that already know this.
But they're listening.
Yeah.
See, it's hard
And I
also
think-
with podcasting. You don't know who's listening,
You
and you don't
Yeah.
know what changes they've made unless
Yeah.
they actually reach out to you and
Which
say
they do.
which
They do. And that's cool.
And sometimes you don't hear from
And the other
weeks.
thing is like the information. Here's why I think maybe it's useful in some ways is that when people make a change, especially if they're going plant-based or something, and I hear this all the time, that they're doing it and they're getting attacked by family members and they want something in their arsenal. So in the very
Definitely.
least, like
Right.
like they go, well, I just listened to a doctor.
No, right.
You know, and
actually, that's been my biggest seller of Proteinaholic is to be it's
a
being
defender.
used as a
That's why-
defender.
sure.
And that's why I wrote it. Was
Yeah,
use
yeah.
this to defend your.
And I think that How Not to Die is a good in
Yeah,
that regard too.
right,
It's because
yeah,
it's so research heavy. And it's like, and so you go. So maybe they're already doing it, but they want something in their arsenal because they're having to fend off freaking attacks. Because that's happening all the time. I mean, I have friends who are like, "Yeah, my mother-in-law is." I just got a text from a ex-client. He's like, "My mother-in-law like is literally like on him at the market while he's texting me like, what the, like I just want to buy food and not have a okay time." You know? And she's like attacking him, and he's the only one in the family, you know, who's doing it. It's just
painful. That's hard.
It's very hard.
Well, you know, that's why they say, what is there, something like 90% of vegans go back to eating meat?
Oh, really? I didn't even know
that's
that.
a huge.
Because of
paleo will love
societal
it.
pressures.
The number one reason is societal.
See, that makes no. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me.
And I know people who avoid Christmas dinners, who avoid Thanksgiving dinners because they don't want to
They don't
deal
wanna
with
hear
the
about it.
family. The family tries to feed the kids under the table. And
Oh,
the
I
kids
have you ever
take
gotten
it.
spouses who do that?
A lot of divorced families will do
Oh,
that.
I've because I've done
Divorced
it.
families must be tough.
Hard.
Oh, that's hard enough. How about when I do? You guys have you done talks on kids? Because I know you guys are all
Yeah.
kid focused.
Yeah.
I have always women. I've never had a guy, so that's just what it is. But women come up and they go, "I don't know what to do. My husband is not into this, and is my child." This has happened multiple times. My child is so dairy intolerant that they get a huge stomach ache, and the husband feeds them dairy at the market when she's not around, knowing that the child is going to have a stomach ache. Knowing that the child, and that multiple times this has happened.
So is
how do you
that-
deal with that?
Is that a problem where the father's just trying to win the kids over, or
I
trying to
don't know.
purposely undermine the wife?
Could be a
Like,
whole-
there's
it
so
could be-
many
I
different.
right? I
Or is it a
maybe
ripple
mar-
effect of a bigger problem?
Maybe it's a marriage problem. Maybe it's that he's worried about calcium. I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
But it's like that's not our job. I mean, I'm not a marriage counselor, but it's just like, whoa, how do you negotiate that when both parents are on the same page?
So coming back to being hopeful, like today I spoke about getting the children to eat more plant-based. So there's a lot of hope in that because that's our next generations,
Yeah.
right? And also if parents are here for themselves and they want to know how to do it for their children, it means that there will be some kind of steps taken. If not completely, then
At least
a few
opening
things
up.
added in if nothing is even taken out. And once you add more things in, there's only so much room that you can fit things in your stomach. So
Yeah.
it only makes sense that there'll be some kind of
But then
positive
there's
reaction.
the fear that, I mean, I don't know if you heard my talk on the stage on the Friday night thing,
Yeah.
but the thing my daughter's going through.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole nother world. Parents are afraid to make that move because then their kids are different from the other kids, and then they're setting themselves up for that nonsense. It's like Jiminy Christmas. It's like it's very hard, all for doing a personal choice that has nothing to do with anybody else, you know. And that's that human nature of like it's a threat, and I don't know what that is. I don't know how to crack that nut.
It's hard.
I'm doing something.
Well, it's a threat because it's cognitive dissonance, so the person feels in some way guilty about their lifestyle,
right.
and so
And they attack
you
on
threaten
it.
them, and so they attack you.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to be right. They don't want to think about their.
And is that the number one hindrance? Is it the
if we're
behaviors?
If we're going deep, yes.
Is that the number one hindrance?
I think
if
so.
If they don't have a motivation other than, if they haven't had a heart attack and they're going, I got to lower my cholesterol or whatever that is, if without that stuff, is the number one hindrance that they have behaviors that are so set and patterned that if something is new, they see it as a threat and they will immediately say stop.
I think so.
So how do you crack that nut? How do you get on top of that? How do you present in a way that gets somebody in a place where they're open enough to at least listen and entertain the idea? I was given a book with no pressure at all. They're like, oh, yeah, you should read this. And I read it, and that's when I started the ballgame by giving up dairy. But it was like, where was I in that place at 24 years old playing music? No interest in nutrition. Reading
You're
a book
just
and
an
changing my
open-minded
life.
guy.
Maybe, is that it? So then
maybe.
it's parenting. Right? Because right? So then why is that? Like, did you grow up research, did you guys grow up? My family was like, oh, if I had an interest, then I would just find out about it. I had that thing of I just want to ride a unicycle, so let me figure out how to ride a unicycle. And so I just kind of figured that out.
Do you really know how to ride?
I really do. I can ride a unicycle. Yeah, but I learned by just going down the hallway. It was a thing I wanted to figure out, but that's sort of a backdrop, and so maybe that fit into later on going asthmatic. How do I figure this out? Was that your guys's? No. Were you open to stuff?
No.
Curious about stuff? So your motivation was...
Well, I was one of those guys who waited till it was too late.
Right. So that was yours.
For tragedy to occur.
Why were you resistant at first, but then you came around? Why?
I was resistant because it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
And I didn't have enough scientific proof or social proof or whatever it was, and it was hard being a parent, being
it is hard.
A new parent.
Still hard.
Yeah, it's
What's
still hard.
The switch? What was the day where you go? Did he just wear you down?
So no, he didn't wear me down at all.
I didn't put any pressure
He was in the
all.
kitchen. Yeah. He was doing his own thing when we weren't having enough of plant-based sides. Then he would get in the kitchen. He was doing his own thing. I had the postpartum depression. I couldn't lose the baby weight. It was on me. I wasn't feeling sexy. I wasn't feeling happy. Yeah. I had to go back to work. All these things happened, and I had read Brendan Brazier books. I had seen Forks Over Knives. I had seen other documentaries and done under research. And then I read Skinny Bitch.
She had the
and
info,
it was just like.
And she read Skinny Bitch, which spoke to her for some reason.
Rory or what's her name?
Rory Friedman.
She's dropped off the face of the earth.
I haven't heard anything about her.
Yeah. And I saw her at a PCRM, and that was the end.
And Kim Barnoon.
She had done some stuff with Tim Van Orden a while ago.
Maybe she's no longer a bitch.
Maybe
she's no longer.
She did a whole bitch series.
She's got no brand. She's got no brand.
But not longer skinny. She was very
She's
skinny
a really nice
last time I
person.
saw her.
She's like a pleasantly plump, super nice person. She's got no hook.
I think it stopped.
Just lost all of her appeal. Branding. Just all the branding.
There's absolutely nothing to go for it.
It stopped after they wrote Skinny Bastard, I think. All the men started turning on her or something. And
Did they really wrote Skinny Bastard?
I think that's what it's named.
I think they did.
Oh, I didn't know.
There was a whole
I thought you were making a
series.
joke.
No,
Yeah.
I don't make jokes. I'm not a funny guy. And so she read that, but I think that combined with seeing the visuals of my retina, the retina exam 1 year after, and knowing that the tumor's shrinking, I think that kind of
that was a switch for you.
I think
so.
But you knew that before. Oh no, because you're right. Because you kept going for the checkups.
Yeah,
and then eventually came around.
in Canada, everything's kind of slow.
Yeah.
There is no private, you can't.
Wait, you're
nice.
Canadian?
We're nice, but we're slow.
You guys never told us
I'm
that.
sitting at the same table.
Do we allow them in our country?
Man, I love Canadians. I might move over there now.
Canadians are literally the stereotype of the friendly Canadian is
It's
100% true. Yeah.
I was wearing a friend of mine's ski helmet that had a Canadian sticker on it recently. I was in Vail, and this guy comes up to me and was like, "Hey man, I'm Canadian too." And I was like, "I'm not really Canadian." He's like, oh, "I'm so sorry. I thought you were." I was like, "It's okay." He's like, "No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you." I was like,
That's how we talk.
Apologize.
I always
Kind of got that Rich Roll feel.
it's got that
You
kind
must have been BC. You must have been West Coast.
Back in the day when I was playing music, I was opening for a guy solo. So it was just he and I, and then a guy who was driving the van, and we were switching off, and we were touring around the U.S. and we pop into Canada. So now the guy I'm opening for he's taking the shift of driving. He's British, and he's going on this road on the way up to Montreal, and it's this country road, and he's going 60 miles per hour, but it's a 60 kilometer, right? Mm-hmm. But he knows he's European. He gets it. He drives all over Europe. He totally gets it. Cop is coming this way, turns around and pulls us over. So this guy, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I have to hide my voice, but the cop comes to the window and he's wearing this like V-neck sweater, just like that. And the policeman goes, you were speeding. You were going really fast.
You got to say it in French.
Yeah, I know. We're not quite yet, but anyway, he didn't have a French accent. But he goes, so do you know how fast you were going? And Neil goes, in British, he's like, I was going 60. If I saw the sign, so I was just going 60.
It's a weak British accent.
I know. Yeah, exactly. He was weak. Anyway, and the guy goes, it's 60 kilometers. And Neil goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And the guy reaches in and he goes, see, on the outside of it's miles per hour, and then on the inside it's kilometers. And Neil goes, oh, I'm so sorry. He goes, no problem. Just be careful. I just don't want you to get hurt.
That's awesome.
And just walks away. That's awesome. And I went, oh my God. It was like the friendliest. Like the friendliest
we
thing.
weren't allowed to backpack without a big Canadian
That's right.
flag.
Oh, yeah.
When we travel overseas,
everybody's got the
I know
Canadian
Americans
flag
will put a
everywhere.
Canadian thing on there.
Because we're about to go over there, and I'm thinking I'm going to put some Canadian stuff on me.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
It's funny though, but you will get treated differently.
Just carry a bottle
We noticed that
of
when
syrup.
we were backpacking in med school. A bunch of us went backpacking. The Canadian people were treated so nicely. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing it
so
myself.
sad.
Yeah.
It's true though.
And now even more so.
I'm thinking about moving to Canada.
It's true. So it was tragic, like the story, like the reason was because something was happening to me. Right?
Yeah.
The health, it was happening to me, and I needed to make a change.
And you needed to see him.
Yeah, and
a remarkable difference, a literally remarkable difference.
having that on paper, having a picture
exactly.
in front of me, and then I think something else clicked that, okay, he's okay, but what if something happens to me?
Yeah.
And thinking of your kids growing up with only one parent when it's not necessary is huge. So, and it's one thing knowing it, and it's another thing feeling it.
Right.
And I think once you start to feel it, and I went through. The PTSD was really hard too, and that kind of gave me that perspective of, okay, if I don't do something right, then maybe I won't be here forever.
of him being
from him, because it was the 9 months of the pregnancy, and it was throwing tantrums like 2-year-olds.
You ruined her life.
That's all my fault.
But your change was research based?
Well, I did it for the chicks.
Did you? Well, at least
The actual
at least for Chef AJ.
The little baby chicks. I did it for the little baby chicks. Mine was very well. It was the same. I mean, I didn't have a cancer, but at the same time, I had.
That's right.
I was told
issues.
that I had high cholesterol, hypertension, and fatty liver, and I felt like crap.
Yeah.
And I was it was this kind of feeling like I was being hypocritical. So I'm treating people, telling them how to be healthy, and yet I wasn't healthy. And
but at that point, were you telling them how to be healthy? Or
I was.
Just different information, but you still were dialing that in.
To eat protein to be healthy.
You were.
Yeah.
So you were advising dietarily then.
I was, because I was a weight loss surgeon.
I know.
But here's the thing: is it was a very insincere discussion about food, because I didn't know anything about food, and I didn't really believe that food had that much to do with it.
That's what I was interested in. That's why I wanted to know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to know.
Yeah, and so when I, started seeing that I actually wasn't healthy, and I was 35, and I did this all around when my wife was first pregnant, and I had these same kind of thoughts, like, I know how this goes. I talked to my friend, he's like, oh, no problem, I'll put you on a blood pressure med and a statin.
Right.
I know how it goes. Next thing I know, I'm on another statin, and then I've got side effects from the statin, and I'm on more blood pressure medications.
Yeah.
I know and then I'm the 50-year-old with a heart attack. I mean, I know this story. And then I just started thinking, is this how it is all over the world? Are we destined to that? And so I started approaching it like I approached any surgical problem. Like when I started to decide I was going to do weight loss surgery, I studied like crazy. Is this a legitimate thing?
Okay, that's my point, though. Because lots of doctors don't think, is this it? They go, let me push, I'll take it. They'll even take a statin, or people will take a statin, they'll take a blood, whatever, Lipitor, and then they're on everything else. But there was something about you that said...
Okay, but this is what Adam and I were talking about today. I wouldn't have been like that had I been healthy. Had I gotten that life insurance policy test, and it would have been fine, I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have changed anything.
I wouldn't have changed. I remember to this day, I remember my first meal without meat in it because my whole life, every meal had meat in it. It was not, and I remember it was the day my daughter was born. It was the first time I had a meal that was completely. It was
cheese
Chinese
sandwich.
It was a Chinese jasmine rice with sliced vegetables, and that was my very first meal.
And on purpose.
Yeah, on
At that point, you said, I'm done.
At that purpose, I said I'm done. I went back and then came. I the other thing is I categorically remember going to my favorite hamburger place and getting a veggie burger and eating it and thinking, is this the rest of my life?
Oh.
Is it going to be veggie burgers? What am I going to eat? It was very panic feeling.
Yeah.
Because it was like, now I knew the research, but could I stick to that?
Well, and now you just eat lettuce.
Yeah, now I just eat lettuce. And that's what I thought. Because I was like, I can't prepare food.
lettuce.
I don't know how to prepare food. My wife isn't preparing this kind of food yet. I mean, now she does. It was like, I'm going to eat veggie burger. And I did for a long time. Ate nothing but veggie burgers. And the funny thing is, if you're eating nothing but veggie burgers, you don't feel that much better.
I know that's the thing. It's like going to tofurkey.
Yeah, so people are like, then this is when you hear people say, oh, I went vegetarian, I didn't feel any better. I felt like crap.
Well, first you're eating cheese all day.
Yeah, you're eating cheese.
And if you go vegan, you could be eating
I was eating
tofurkey.
cheese pizzas and cheese, veggie cheese pizzas instead of the pepperoni I used to have. But I didn't feel a huge difference. The big difference was vegetarian to vegan.
Yeah.
But that was a process. That wasn't an overnight thing.
It wasn't?
I couldn't even tell you when I went vegan.
So when you gave up the meat that day you had the jasmine thing, you weren't vegan?
No.
That was just your first step in
That
no
was
meat,
first step.
but there was
I was vegetarian.
There happened to be no dairy.
I was pesco vegetarian, and then so I did a lot of dairy, and I did a lot of fish, and then I got my labs checked, and my mercury level was sky high.
No joke.
Yeah, 18. And I called up the people that did the lab. I was like, I see my
can't be
mercury
right.
level was 18. Like, yes. I was like, well, what's normal? They're like, well, zero's normal. Well, I mean, you're not supposed to have any mercury in your body.
My gosh.
But then they were like, look, a lot of us have mercury in our body, so what?
Does it stay in your body for a long time? Like, did you just have that fish that was heavy with
Well, I got it checked again, and it
recent?
was very, very low. I think it was like 1 or 2 next time I got it checked.
Could have had like 3 cans of tuna the day before.
Right.
No, I think I was. I think it was.
eating the
I did a lot of
actual cans.
sushi.
The cans too.
There was a lot of
and the fish
sushi.
inside.
There was a lot of tuna sushi.
Yeah. I want to ask you, when you read studies, do you look immediately to who funded the studies? Have you gotten in that habit? Always?
Always.
So when you were writing your book, your first book, and you said it wasn't even supported scientifically with the protein part of it.
Right.
Everything else was. That's what you
Right.
said on my podcast. But at that point, were you coming across studies on diet, or were you not reading studies on
reading
diet?
studies
You just
on
weren't reading
diet.
studies.
No.
So as soon as you did,
Yeah.
not for your practice, but for you,
Yeah. Well, as soon
Not
as I
for-
started, look, when you first start reading the plant-based stuff, look, it doesn't study, it started more like studying the cultural stuff, like the blue zones and stuff like that. And like, oh, wow, there's other people that don't have these diseases. And like Dennis Burkett was a big player in my change, just this idea of the surgeon who noticed this Ugandan population that has the same Anglo-Saxon diseases. So he goes to Uganda, they don't have it. So there's something going on. There's something different.
Yeah.
And there was another project that I was very interested in, was the Waimea project, where they went to Hawaii and they took, because Hawaiians are sick, diabetes, all this stuff. They took these Hawaiians and they put them on what Hawaiians used to eat.
Yeah,
and their diabetes and everything went away. And they were eating more and more carbs. And carbs were bad and protein was good.
Yeah.
And I kept
Is
seeing.
this Atkins? When is this?
This was Atkins zone. I was Atkins.
But it was around the time of Atkins, because that would have been in like the tooth.
Oh, you mean when
Was
the
Atkins
Waimea
hot?
was?
Yes. No. When you were saying like carbs were with the whole protein, because carbs didn't even become a word. People said, did they always say carbs? I only remember carbs as not carbohydrates, but carbs as the Atkins. That's when I started
I
hearing
remember
carbs.
I remember talking about
Carbo.
carb loading.
It kind of came when the the fat-free stuff.
But did they use the word carbs?
Yes,
they did.
Yeah.
Even before.
Well,
Atkins.
it really started after the McGovern Committee did the Senate Select Committee on Nutrition, and they said, don't eat meat, don't. Well, I
remember that, and then
you don't eat meat, don't eat
Did Bob
eggs.
Dole have something to do with it?
Yeah, Bob Dole did. So
That's
Bob
right.
Dole was like a big, Republican in Kansas. So he he said we can't do. So instead, the recommendation became eat more lean meat. Now we started focusing on this word lean, and we started getting to low fat. And then we started getting, was it low fat, or low fat didn't seem to work, even though we never really went low fat.
Entenmann. I remember Entenmann's like non-fat coffee cake. It was like,
Oh, this is so good.
99% fat-free.
And Snackwells went crazy. Everybody was eating Snackwells, but no one was getting better. And so then they were like, oh, the problem is the carbs. So that's when we started getting the low fat. So it was the resurgence of Atkins in the 80s. Because Atkins was big in the early 1970s.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know.
Oh, his first book was early 1970s. Then it was revisited in the 80s.
80s, I'm talking about. It was hot in the 2000s.
Another
resurgence?
Yeah, another resurgence. So then it started, it came back even after his death as a big thing.
Wow,
so now
I wasn't even aware.
The guy who runs the Duke's program for diet has taken over that position as like kind of the medical director of Atkins.
But is it still happening? I thought it went bankrupt.
I don't know.
They lost all that, like all the power bars, all the bars they had, like all that stuff was done.
I don't think they're gone. I don't know the whole.
It'll resurface again if it didn't work the second
it is
time
back.
or
It's
the
called-
third
it's called
time.
Paleo.
It's gonna come
Yeah,
again.
it's called Paleo.
So it's back, and it's back in a
New brand.
better package.
Yeah, a more natural package.
Yeah, and it's a package that speaks to people really. It speaks to the I'm paleo.
Jeff Stanford, the guy who owns the Stanford and my boss, but he sent me an article about. I mean, this is how he already knew. He got his master's in anthropology, but he sent me this article where they scraped another remains, and it's what we all know. But it's this group that they found was living in an area where they were basically just plant based.
Just plant based
because they had plants.
That was
So they were
Israel's
eating
the
roots
most
up.
recent one they found.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Israel, but they also found an interesting thing. I thought it was in Europe somewhere. But anyway, they found two interesting things. One, they were plant-based. They were eating mushrooms, shrubs. But they were also eating, this is unrelated, but they were eating birch for pain. Because that's where aspirin comes from. So they have proof that they were actually naturally they knew enough to eat something that was going to be a pain reliever. Isn't that amazing?
We're just going to take a little break here because I want to share with you that growth is something that happens for everyone and every business. And we've been going through a lot of personal and professional growth here at Plant Trainers, and we want to stay connected with you. That's why we're giving away our plant-based comfort food ebook that's worth $14.99 for free at our website at planttrainers.com or by clicking the link in the show notes. Click on that, get on our newsletter because we're going to be making some serious changes and you need to be aware of what's going on. We look forward to connecting with you there. And now back to the show.
And that was almost more the focus on the article, but it was like the title was Paleo, they weren't always eating meat.
Right.
It was actually very plant-based, depending on where you
it's
were.
crazy to me when
for
someone
crying
tells
out
me
loud.
they're paleo, they have this huge side of steak with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not...
With no energy
First
expenditure
of all,
to get it.
those cows are not the least bit paleo.
That's what I said today. I call it technology
nothing paleo.
now.
It's great. And they have their paleo bar. It's just ridiculous. But there's a way to do paleo in a legitimately healthy fashion.
Yeah, go outside and hunt your food.
Go outside and hunt your food. So there are some guys. There's a guy... I forget his name, but I mean, he is basically vegan unless he shoots the animal himself, and he will eat everything from that animal.
Yes, if I were to say it to him, I'd go like, they didn't have guns.
Well, he
So
uses
go make
bow and
that
arrow.
done.
He uses bow and arrow.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
Is it really fancy?
No, it's a
I
slingshot.
bet it's
I
not
haven't checked. Is it a compound?
It's like a compound. It's like a full-on commando.
That's one of those with all the little
Voice
wheels
automated.
and stuff.
It's got a sight and a laser. Just like our paleo.
But he'll chase them down and
I mean, it's something.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's
why does he
something.
do
So
that if he eats plants all the time? Now, does he forage for the plants?
I don't know the answer to that.
But one thing that they do is they put a concentration on non-packaged foods.
Yeah.
So it's not
There's
And
so
no
there's
dairy.
There's
dairy.
certain things
Yeah.
that make sense. It's just that the
Yeah.
overboard thing of going in and buying meat.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
The energy I've been thinking about this recently and talking about it is the energy expenditure that we now expend to get meat is for the energy you get is almost
Is
nothing.
nothing, yeah.
But in the wild, to pick a piece of fruit is about what it's like in a market to pick a piece of fruit.
Yeah.
It's more of a natural exchange.
Well, this is
it's
an
a
interesting concept.
closer.
I haven't really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I actually talk about it with nuts. Because we slam nut, and it's healthy. But what we do in nuts, we take a shovel out of the bulk bin.
Yeah.
No energy expenditure what it would be in nature.
Right.
But fruit is about the same.
Yeah, I stopped getting like those pistachios in a bag where they're already shelled.
It's too much. It's too easy.
They're
You
already
can't even
shelled.
shell. Oh, I get it. I love pistachios. You
that's
got to at least
bad.
do the work of the shell. Otherwise,
You got to
there's
do
too
the
many
work of
going
the
in.
shell, or else. I love the work of the shell because that slows me down. and it makes,
Yeah.
And then you could go in, you could pick at those little papers that stay behind, make sure you pick it clean and taste it even longer.
Yeah. I love pistachios, but the shelled ones is like that should
The
never
shelled
be. They
one.
might
that
as well
should
just do
not
a
be-
line of cocaine.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. You're just getting a whole handful of pistachios.
Yeah, it's like a line of cocaine already cut.
Right.
You haven't done to do any work for it.
Right,
No,
right,
but I think about that because I think where there's such a disconnect between, of course my bent is approaching the natural, but there's such a disconnect between the energy we get and the energy we expend. And if we say, okay, well in the modern world I sit behind a desk, I don't expend that much energy. Even when I exercise for 30 minutes, it's still not that much energy. If you look at like a 6-mile run, the caloric burn on that is Not massive.
500,
yeah. And so then you can get 500 calories of nuts like that. And that's just one of the things you eat all day.
Yeah.
Right? Or a bag of Lay's potato chips, forget it. You know, so it's like to think about that more of like, well, what would I do in nature? Well, I would just grab this and then, you know, and that's why I think the paleo thing falls a little bit of the energy it would take to chase down an animal. If there's plants around, you're not going to do that. You're going to eat the plants.
But also with plants, you're bending, you're squatting, or you're climbing a coconut tree.
Yeah, and you're in the sun. And you're breathing fresh air, and you're, you know, it's like it's a whole nother world. But it's a little closer when you go to plants.
It's closer.
It's closer because the caloric concentration is so much lower.
Unless you're
plants.
this guy who tracks the animal and hunts them down and runs after them and shoots them.
Yeah, and I wonder, with all that energy expenditure, I wonder if it's even, you know, he probably has to make it up. Some of the theories anthropologically about meat eating were that it was a caloric need. Like when you didn't have enough plants, you would get an animal to get the calories. It wasn't like it was optimal. And that's my...
Oh, I think it was more an when you look at the ethnographic atlases and stuff, it's more like the men did it because that was the macho thing to do, but most of the calories that people ate were not what the men were doing, but what the women were gathering.
But there's have you ever the Kung tribe?
Yeah.
Okay, they're still hunter-gatherers. They're mostly plant-based.
Yeah. And you're not going to get that much meat.
But that's the thing. It's not even a macho thing. It's not a cultural thing. They are eating mostly meat. Usually it's for sport or a game that they'll do for meat, but mostly they're foraging.
Yeah.
So there's also the sense of community. So the men are going out to do this together. The women are doing this together. And then there's the whole mental health issue that goes along with it. And it all comes together.
Have you seen that cartoon where the little caveman boy's talking to his dad and the dad has his hand like in his head in his hands like he's so upset, and the kid said, "Dad, I hate to tell you this, but I'm a hunter-gatherer. I'm a gatherer. I'm not a hunter." It's cute.
That's excellent.
But, you know, I think that's what the paleo's kind of going to this, like, macho, go out and kill the animal.
I think so.
That's what it's appealing to. It's not thinking... First of all, it came from an exercise physiologist, not from an anthropologist. There's no anthropologist anywhere near this paleo movement. Anthropologists think it's ridiculous.
It was so location dependent. Anyway, there's so many
flaws. Is it just a business?
Probably it's telling people what they would.
Well, it's become a business. I don't think it started as a business. I think it started as this appeal to get back to nature, which is that's why it's better than Atkins. Is, you know, there's no pork rinds and stuff like that. They do legitimately. I mean, the guys that I know are paleo are very legitimate. They're very into their science of paleo, which I could tear apart. They could tear apart some of our vegan studies too. Our vegan studies aren't perfect. So
there's a huge faction that isn't scientifically based paleo, and they're using it as an excuse to just eat bacon. I mean, there's a paleo magazine at the market where I shop in my town, and one day I went in and it had a Chef Waldorf salad.
Yeah.
Waldorf salad on the cover of the paleo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cuckoo.
It's cool.
I'm sure you know guys that are like trying to keep it real.
Yeah,
but that's clearly not most people in that thing.
Going and donating blood because paleo man would lose blood often.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that true? That happens?
It's true. Yeah, there's some guys that believe that's part of the paleo movement.
Yeah, it's a tough. The whole picture is a tough bag because it's like you're trying to make a big change in your life on top of the normal stress of living in the modern world, and it's like you want it bad, but how do you get somebody to?
There's so much incentive for the opposite of what we're preaching about. I mean, look, I've been fighting my hospital to make things healthier. And they've got absolutely no incentive to make it healthy. What's their incentive to make it healthy? I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory where they're trying to keep people sick. They just don't care.
What about so if this is getting in politics, I don't really necessarily want to go there. But if you envisioned a single payer system where the government really did pay for it, would it then follow that there's an incentive to try to make it as inexpensive as possible because the government's footing the bill? Like, does Canada have more of a bent toward healthy because it's because universal health care?
No, it should.
In theory,
it should.
We're paying for it. Let's try to save this money.
We're paying for everybody else's surgeries. We're paying for everybody else's bad habits. We're paying for how the government's not doing enough to teach people how to be healthy and not having.
Do you like your healthcare system?
Well, it's good because it's free.
Yeah.
But if my taxes could be lower because everybody were healthier, then that would be better.
So in theory, I mean, it's free, but you pay higher taxes. I mean, that's always the thing.
Like kids aren't dying of strep throat because you're not taking them to the doctor, right? Like,
you don't know. There's nothing worse than me to see a patient and they need a procedure and they don't have insurance for it. That's a terrible, horrible feeling. So I'm telling you, Canada's better than ours. Now, look, if you're in our system and you've got the best, insurance policy, yeah, it seems like it's fantastic, but you've got it, other people don't, and that's the sad part about it.
It's a pretty sad.
But you know what's worked has been, like, you look at Kaiser, so they're an HMO. So you go into Kaiser, you give them a lump sum. That's all profit to them, but you take from it every time you're sick. So if they can keep you healthy, they keep more money. Each time you get sick, they got to give you back some more money. So they're very incentivized to keep you healthy, which is why Kaiser's doing plant-based diets, doing exercise stuff, sleep stuff. I mean, they're leading the way on this idea of health. But unless we had a system with some kind of, accountability to the people to be healthy or help to make them healthy. Look, in Western medicine, if I say preventive medicine to someone, they think mammogram and PSA, which isn't preventative. It's early diagnosis. They don't understand the idea that you could actually stop disease from even happening. And there's no incentive to do so.
I think some businesses are trying to keep their employees healthier because they're paying part of the insurance premiums. And I know that people get tests. I had a woman come to me and we worked together, and she needed to have tests for the insurance company, and her premium would depend on how many points she got. And she brought down her cholesterol by 33 points, and she got like an amazing score on her insurance policy, and she was able to pay less money. So it should also be intrinsic that, like, if I can be healthier, then I don't have to pay all this money to my doctors and stuff like that.
My wife and I just signed up for life insurance that was for runners.
I keep seeing that advertised.
I went ahead and looked into it. I saved money.
Really?
I really did. Yeah, I got way more money policy. And then,
did you have to turn in marathon times and stuff
exactly.
like that?
No, they kind of take your word for it. But
they take your word for it?
Yeah, I mean, I just said I'm a whatever pace I am.
Because they had this thing, like, if you could run an 8-minute mile.
I mean, they come to your house, they take blood, and the whole thing, urine, everything.
That's what I failed at one time. But they were like, if you can run an 8-minute mile.
Yeah.
I was very upset about that.
It's like healthy IQ or something. Health IQ or something. Anyway,
cool.
I just went ahead and did it because I was
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so... I mean, maybe
more insurance companies should be discounting people for their health.
Yeah.
Well, what bothers me is they'll ask you every question under the sun except for what you eat. Life insurance too.
Funny.
Smoker, drink, how much you drink, how much you smoke. Not one question about what you eat. The
So
major factor.
Look, it's the same.
And they don't even ask.
It's the same.
I think it's coming though. I think
they don't know what to ask.
I go, by the way,
is butter good? Is butter bad? They don't know. They're confused. They feel like there's not a consensus. Which there basically is, but there are biases. But I didn't come at this with a bias. Like this, Proteinaholic was my experience changing my life because of this literature. I read this stuff. I was like, oh my God, no one knows about this. I need to put this down in a book so I could tell the world and everybody's going to be happy. Right. I didn't quite really think about the fact. I didn't think about the fact that
there was an assault.
Yeah, that it was an assault on someone else's. I mean, I guess I was kind of rude towards the paleo people, but I never really. I thought, God, you're stupid to think that.
Yeah.
I now have a little bit more respect.
I saw some stuff on Facebook that you would just get into people, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, I'm like, come on, you're
Garth.
dumb.
Yeah,
but I've met some smart guys, and there's some guys that are legitimate, and I think I kind of look. Denise says this too. Like, so Denise, who was the paleo godfather for a while, this young girl. That's the other thing is, like, I go to conferences where everybody's a PhD and an MD.
Yeah.
These paleo conferences, there's very few anything like that. I mean, it's non-experts.
You've gone to paleo conferences?
I haven't, but I follow who they have there and who the top.
Yeah.
Like the top guys are not.
Yeah, you can just see.
And so Denise at one of the conferences got up and said, there is something to vegan. And she started as a vegan vegetarian. And she actually eats a predominantly plant-based diet. And she said, there is something to veganism, and there's something to these research studies. And she said, her belief is that there's something in the extremes. And I agree with her. If you're extreme low carb, you will be a lot healthier than the standard person. If you're extreme vegan, you're going to be healthier. It's in the middle grounds where I don't see. I don't think carbs mix well with fat. So you're either very low fat, high carb, or you're very low carb, high fat. I don't think there's a good mix in between.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem when people don't have a big enough understanding. They say, oh, I can eat as much fat as I want from this diet. I can eat as many carbs as I want from this diet. And they kind of curate their own diet, and they end up sicker as when they started.
Right. This is the problem. The high fat, the data between high fat, low carb is legitimate. And the science is legitimate, and the guys doing some of the science is legitimate. But the takeaway point that the public is taking is I could eat fat.
Right, and it's still macronutrient focused instead of micronutrient.
It's still macronutrient focused.
So they're still to me they're still missing the point.
they're
they're not
missing
even
the
avocados.
No, they're not.
I'll tell you that much. It's like the
Well, no,
assumption
the
is
top guys are.
but they're still eating animal fat.
Oh, they're still eating
which is then
animal fat.
packaged with cholesterol.
Well, they're
and
putting
saturated.
butter in their coffee.
They're
putting butter in
right.
the coffee.
Yeah, and so, don't get me started on butter coffee. But yeah, and that's my problem too. So I was reading Christopher McDougall's new book, Natural Born Heroes. Did you guys read that book? It's a pretty good book. Did you catch the end with Timothy Noakes, who's the guy who wrote Waterlogged?
Don't get me started.
I know, and so he was the high.
He's
carb.
diabetic.
No, really?
Yes.
So at the end, like Christopher McDougall meets him, he's having like sausage and eggs because he's now 100% changed, and now he's high fat, high protein, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And it's like, geez, but I love like it's not health, but they're still not focused on healthy fat, healthy protein. It's still just like, well, who thinks eggs and sausage?
Bacon.
Yeah, bacon resurgence, unbelievable.
The biggest problem is that everyone's so focused on the macronutrients.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
We're not focusing on food.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the opposite side, because I'm willing to listen to the papers and stuff they have and listen to their research. I want to know. I want to learn.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. And if I give them an epidemiologic study, like, oh, that's correlation, not causation. But just about every study they give me is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And we're never going to have, and a lot of the times, they've got a few things that they say all the time, right? Correlation, not causation. They always say appeal to authority. They don't like it if you say, well, these doctors have said this and this, but don't appeal to authority. Meanwhile, I give credit to authority.
Yeah.
Because you can read all the papers you want. It's like I put up that slide about how there's information everywhere, but information is not knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is the ability to tie this information together. Who does that? Experts.
Yeah.
So I want to hear from experts.
Yeah.
So they say that stuff all the time, and they cannot accept. It's like a lot of times it's like arguing that water is wet. There's some people I just can't. It's like how many papers do I need to show you? I mean, they'll come out with these, vegans are unhealthy. What do you mean?
Yeah, what does vegan mean?
What does vegan mean? But even if you want to look at the EPIC health study where they had unhealthy vegans, and yet they were healthy. You look at the Adventist health study, which is a blue zone. I mean, vegans are clearly not unhealthy.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, there was this study in Austria that said that vegans weren't healthy. Okay, how could you even refer to the study that had 50,000 meat eaters and 30 vegans?
Wow.
And those 30 vegans were interviewed on a phone, and no one asked them why they were vegan. Turns out some of them turned vegan because they were sick. They didn't get sick because they were vegan. So, that's what they'll do is appeal to absolute crap stuff that they do.
So have we gone past the point of no return in terms of like at some point in the past did we already know enough and now we're just convoluting?
We are convoluting. I don't know. Look, David Katz, who is the head of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine and a professor at Yale, we were on a panel together recently, and he was saying he thinks we're getting better. He's like, we're all getting closer together.
Really?
And I don't see that.
I don't see it either.
I think the fat debate is getting in the way.
Yeah.
Like, look, Mark Hyman's book is sensational for sure. If you're talking to me about good fats, I'm not going to argue with you too much.
Yeah.
I can't argue with fish, quite honestly. I could argue with the environmental effects of eating fish.
Yeah.
I could argue with the poisoning of the fish with the mercury content and stuff like that. But look, in the Adventist health study, the vegetarians are sometimes healthier than the vegans in certain regards, and same with the EPIC study. So
is that because of the small percentage of people who can't make the long chain omega-3s?
Maybe, yeah.
And
do we have a
the lack
figure
of
on
omega-3?
Like what percentage of our
there was a study
because there's no way all paleo or at least whatever era that was that in our evolution we're on the coast.
No, there was
we did not all
eat fish. No. And we were eating nuts and stuff and getting by with that.
That's right.
And look, it's not just the omega-3; it's the omega-6. Like, are you eating a lot of omega-6 and that's putting you
the
in
right proportions?
Right. The right proportions.
No, I get it, but even
so, if you're eating low omega-6, you don't need that much omega-3.
Right.
But that may be the case. It may be.
But of the omega-3 you're eating, if you're not able to, Furman talks about it. There's a small percentage that cannot.
It may be more than
take
a
the
small
short
percentage.
chain. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
what have you read?
they did a study out in India, a population study, but that's different again because that's India. How do we know what's going on in America?
So do you recommend? I tend to, with clients, recommend a DHA, EPA.
I take microalgae.
Exactly.
I take microalgae.
You do?
Yeah.
Do you recommend that to people?
I do.
Just as a safety? Just because it can't hurt you. So in case you're one of the percentage that
hurt
can.
you. If you're taking fish oil and you're getting rancid fish oil.
No, not fish oil.
Yeah, the microalgae, the studies on the microalgae are pretty safe so far.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything that says negative.
Yeah.
But in other words, if you don't have that problem that you can't make long chain out of, it's not going to hurt you.
I'm not
going
to freak out. If someone is whole foods, plant-based, and they're eating some nuts and seeds and
Greens
and chia and stuff like that, I don't have enough evidence to tell them they absolutely have to take microalgae.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a must take.
I'm just wondering.
B12 is a must take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I'll take a DHA EPA on occasion, but not. I'll forget for months, and I don't
I'm the same.
know what it would look like if I
didn't
had that problem of not being able to.
Yeah.
What would that look like? Cognitive?
I don't. Well, people make that argument. People make this argument about cognitive, but I don't think anybody's tested it or shown it.
Inflammatory? Because I'm not having inflammatory issues.
But you're not eating a whole bunch of omega-6 fried food.
No, I'm not at all. I mean,
so how are you going to get the inflammation unless you have a 15 to 20 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3?
I know, but I'm saying if I had that thing that said I cannot make EPA and then DHA out of omega-3s, if I literally cannot, in theory, I would be having some more inflammatory issues, even if
I mean, I don't...
I've never seen science
You
on
could
this.
be more inflammatory and not know because it's so little, too. Just not affecting your day-to-day life.
That's why I was asking,
Yeah.
what would it look like if you had that thing?
I mean, everybody who's eating any meat or dairy is inflammatory all day
Yeah.
long. They just don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder because my numbers are great.
Yeah.
In terms of I'll do a blood test now on occasion and talk
I mean,
about
some of the stuff we just don't know. We don't know.
I think about it evolutionarily and think we didn't all
We weren't all
spearfit.
Right.
There were people who just didn't have access, and so were they all deficient of but they were eating, in theory, plants that had. I mean, plants have omega-3. Even not.
Well, the animals they were eating had omega-3 too.
But did they have DHA, EPA, DHA?
Yeah.
How so? I guess
They're
grass eaters
processing.
would.
Yeah,
I guess grass eaters would.
Yeah. They looked at Iceland because Iceland eats a lot of meat, but they eat a lot of sheep that are extremely well grass-fed, and they actually get a considerable amount of omega-3 from it. Yeah.
That's butter coffee for you.
Yeah.
But I love how butter coffee.
is
It's a great source of vitamin K. If you actually look at the numbers, how much butter you have to eat to get any substantial amount, it's like a cup of butter, literally a cup to get any and leafy greens.
And then they say, well, it's K2. That's the other thing.
Yeah, I love that one
K2.
too. Yeah, I love that one too.
And what kind of garbage is coming along with it, though?
Well, it's a cup of butter to get any substantial. I mean, it's an extract.
We've reached a point where buttered coffee is a thing.
Not a thing. He got $9 million of venture capital. Yeah. Bulletproof coffee. I was like, you kidding me?
I debated him.
You did?
Yeah, look it up on Google.
David, what's his name?
David Asprey. He's like, and I saw that there were all these people in Tibet, and they drink tons of buttered yak butter, tea, and they're so healthy and ready. I'm like, they die of heart disease at 60 years old. Yeah, it's not healthy. Plus, they're living at altitude, which just living at altitude dropped their cholesterol level.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, that's the first thing I said is other factors. It's like the French saying red wine.
Yeah, right.
But still heart disease is killing them. But there's other factors of lifestyle that who knows.
Well, the French paradox, the other factor is that their pathologists don't call it heart disease, they call it old age.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I died 46.
Yeah,
it's old age.
It's old age. Yeah. No. Or natural causes. They don't call it heart disease.
You're kidding.
No, yeah. I read about I wrote about that in my book just because it doesn't have anything to do with protein. It just has to do with the fact that you're getting wrong information a lot.
Yeah. If you look a little
deeper.
There
is no French paradox. They get heart disease.
You got to look deeper, but then it's hard to look deeper these days.
So when you do die naturally, you live till an old age, your body eventually breaks down because it's just too old to live. You get pneumonia and you're done. Is that more or less how it works? I don't know that
pneumonia is the factor. It could be cardiomyopathy, your tissue stretching, you're not pumping blood efficiently. It could be an infection because your infection cell count's down. It could be a heart attack because after years and years and years, you finally got enough of a blood clot that breaks off. Who knows? I mean, all this stuff is over. Kids start. If you do autopsies on children,
they're finding heart.
They've got
5, 6 years old.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Plaques in their vessels already. So this is a long. That's the other thing is people I switched to a ketosis diet and I haven't died of heart disease yet.
Yeah,
you give it a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Heart disease is not an immediate thing; it's a long-term thing. Although interesting you could see benefits very quickly from getting off of it. So, the North Korea study where they took this huge population that was eating a lot of butter and smoking and got them to stop butter and smoke, and their heart disease rate went down tremendously. And then you saw the same thing with the World War II with the Nazi blockade in Norway, and they're just amazing drops in heart disease at that time too.
For what reason?
Because when they blockaded, they took all the cattle, so these people didn't have any cattle.
They had to go agrarian.
So they had to just eat basically a plant-based
Potatoes.
diet. Potatoes, yeah.
Wow.
Now some people say, well, they were living at subsistence. That might be part of it too. Just a drop in calories in general. It wasn't this wasn't an organized study, but it's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power in that because everybody can understand that a little bit more, right? Like we consume the most dairy, yet we have the most osteoporosis, right? Like it's
although you got to be
look
careful of that. So people love those kind of things, and we'll talk about them all the time. But that's not good science. That's what's called univariate analysis. So we're taking two variables. Well, it also turns out that whenever the AFC team wins the Super Bowl, the stock market drops. So that's also a univariate analysis. Is it true? Probably has nothing. Obviously, there's no mechanism.
It might be true. It's just not related.
It's just not related. It just happens to be related.
But in the China study, he does document as the rate of dairy consumption or calcium consumption goes up, hip fractures and osteoporosis go up.
Yeah. Look, osteoporosis is not all about calcium.
Yeah.
It's about how much you move, how much resistance you're putting into your bones.
Yeah.
It's about how much magnesium and potassium and other electrolytes you're getting.
Well, but if you're trying to, but on in T. Colin Campbell's defense, if you're making the argument that we need to eat more dairy for healthy bones,
that's not.
You can say that's not true.
Right. You could say
you can say it's multiple factors.
It's multiple factors.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
So maybe that he was just trying to say well, that's crap.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't necessarily mean that if you lower your dairy, your bones are going to get healthier, but it's clearly not.
Right. The null hypothesis has been proven. In other words, you're saying you need dairy in order to have healthy bones. Well, we've proven that there's people that don't eat dairy that have healthy bones.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's
the
not
Bantu
true.
tribe. Right.
So you could do.
We know that. That's true.
So many tribes.
And we all
the
can
vegans.
we can also say the Inuit
yeah.
Eat a ton of calcium and have the worst
and have terrible bones. But
again, it could be multiple. Right.
It could be multiple
exactly.
factors.
Yeah.
And so you stopped eating dairy, your asthma went away.
Yeah.
And that was a choice because you were open-minded to doing that. And so if
I was open-minded to reading a book in the first place.
But whitewashed? Whitewashed?
Fit for Life.
Fit for Life.
Remember that?
Wow.
I do.
That book
Long
comes
time
up
ago.
That was you.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
that
does.
was
It does.
That book comes up so often.
It's still unbelievable. Did you ever read it?
I never read
It wasn't even a vegan book, but it was a food combining, fruit in the morning. I started doing fruit in the morning. That was the first change. And then I just gave up dairy.
It's affected a lot of people.
Crazy.
And so what are we telling everybody else who's listening right now as far as what they could be doing, or why aren't they doing something about it, and why are they waiting for something bad to happen to them before they do make a change?
Or maybe they're not waiting for something consciously bad.
Right.
But I would say that it starts with a mindset of before you make any changes, deciding maybe to be open to things. I mean, maybe you just start with that bare bones of a thing of just being open to stuff and see what comes in as a result of it. I mean, maybe that's the backdrop.
I wish I could convey just sitting here at this Health Fest, just the ruddy, healthy look of all the people there. Like, everybody just looks healthy. Like, you walk around, people don't look healthy in general, but here people look really healthy and are really excited about how they feel. I mean, that's right. We're all excited about how we feel. I wish, because you know what? You don't know you feel bad until you feel good, and then you realize, oh my God, that's how it was for me.
Yeah.
I mean, once I really got my diet straight and I felt so good, I was like, oh my God, I wish everybody could feel the way I feel. Everybody's always complaining about how tired they are.
Yeah.
I mean, what time is it? I feel great.
Yeah.
You know,
We got to bottle it.
I remember
Yeah,
talking to a
that's
guy who
right.
was like drinking all the time and smoking all day. He's like, I never get sick. And I was like, just because you're sick.
You're constantly
You know,
right.
like,
Yeah.
You don't get the flu, but
Yeah.
clearly
Yeah.
your day to
I
day.
think the poisons in your cigarette might be killing that, but
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a relative thing. But I think
like
you're
now
right.
I'm so excited about it. Can I push it? Can I get even healthier? Like, I'm constantly, what can I do to get even healthier? What I want to get as healthy as possible because each step I just feel better,
Right.
You know,
and can do more stuff.
and could do more
You know,
stuff.
that's
yeah.
I think that's all we.
There's no limit.
Yeah, and that's what we found out. That it was like, the better you treat yourself, and all of a sudden you're doing triathlons and I'm trying an ultra, and It's like crazy. So, yeah, I don't know. It's for us. I think it's on us if we want to make a difference, which we do, to be as understanding that this isn't because people are dumb. They're just busy, and we want to make it as accessible and fun as possible.
And they're confused.
And they're confused because of the marketplace. So if we can make it simple and we can communicate in a very clear and open way and not in a judgmental, attacking way, but just a, hey, this is out there, check it out kind of way, then what else can we do?
Serve as an example.
Be as happy and healthy as we can be.
And try to somehow parse out the literature of what's valid and what's not out there. But look, it's working because there's a huge shift in this country right now. There's more and more vegetarians, more and more vegans every year. It's big amongst young people. There's other reasons to be vegan besides health.
Yeah.
Whether it's the ethics. Even the paleo guys couldn't agree with the ethics of the way. And for the most part, they can agree with the environment. Some of them disagree with the environment. That's dumb. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
So I think at the end of the day, people need to try and not sign in stone that this is their new life. I think that if they just try and they see how they feel and they see that the impact that they're having on the environment, they see how they can build community around it, and they don't commit forever, and then they get hooked and they like it and they see the difference and they feel good, then essentially that's what's going to drive them forward.
Yeah.
But to feel good, you can't go moderate though.
No. Well, you can feel better pretty quick by not doing everything. The fact of the matter is, when people went Atkins, a lot of them felt better because compared to what they were eating, it was actually better.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you can,
that's definitely true of paleo.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because they're getting rid of all the processed.
Yes, it's a great step.
Yeah.
And so it's like nobody wants to admit that, but it's true.
I just have a hard time with people going vegan and now they're eating veggie burgers, still eating dairy.
Sure.
They're eating some fiber, so they're getting gassy because they haven't eaten this way before. And they're still eating dairy, so they're getting gassy. And they're like, I feel like crap on this vegan diet.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. But then I go, it's on a diet.
You're not eating But I'm just like, you're not eating the way a whole food plant-based diet is supposed to be designed.
People have a problem with beans. They go in and they eat like a whole bowl of beans.
Yeah, they're like, I'm vegan.
You never drink and you go and drink a whole bottle of wine.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to end up on the floor.
I don't know. That's the problem with extremes, because I'm an extreme guy and I'm going to go in extreme. But if you go in extreme on that fiber load, you're going to feel like crap for a while. Eventually, you feel fine.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I mean, now I could eat a huge bowl of beans and it doesn't even faze me. But like, I couldn't do that in the beginning.
It's an adjustment that you have to stick to long enough to allow your body to
adjust.
Come along for the ride. And if you take it,
and because it's not a quick fix. And in my world where it's weight loss, I used to do high-protein diets for weight loss, and I got very rapid weight loss.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
But I also got very rapid weight regain.
Yeah.
But people were really excited about the weight loss and about the fast weight loss. And the sad thing is, when they got the fast weight regain, they blamed it all on themselves. They didn't blame it on the fact that their leptin level dropped too fast, so their brain said, leptin's dropping, so I need to make you hungry. They didn't blame it on the fact that they actually lost muscle, so they were slowing metabolism. They blamed it on themselves. They're like, I'm a weak person, and that's why. And so that really depresses me. But they love that fast initial.
Sure.
And so it's very hard for me to talk to people about plant-based diets and say, look, you're not going to lose 20 pounds this month. You're going to lose 5.
Yeah.
And then you're going to lose 5 the next month. And then 5 the next month. And 5 the next month. Which is amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, in 6 months.
That's actually a huge amount.
But everyone's looking for the quick fix.
But
which is not, which isn't real.
Some blood. You might see the quick fix there.
No, you do see the quick fix in the blood. So I love the blood because the LDL levels drop immediately. And that's a big thing for me.
And probably fasting glucose.
Glucose takes about 3 weeks.
But that's fast.
That's fast.
I mean, I'm saying that's pretty quick. As the fat goes down, that's pretty good.
If they're doing everything right.
Doing what you want them to do.
I want them
Dr. Garth.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
That's a pleasure. It was a fun conversation,
That was
guys.
fun.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. way. Join us again next time
and have a healthy day.
Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.